What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Get the Bag podcast. I'm your host, Gladia Castro. I got my co-host, Tim Park.
What's up,
What's
fam?
going on? This is episode 25, and I'm really, really excited for today because we have a really special guest. And I think this specific topic is something that could be useful for a lot of entrepreneurs, especially entrepreneurs that are just getting started in whether your venture is real estate, what credit, whatever it is. You should definitely take notes. But before we get all into that, don't forget to like, subscribe. We got episodes every week, so tap in with us. We're always spreading knowledge. We just want to see our guests succeed. So without further ado, this special guest, I actually met him at an event in Vegas. Shout out to Wire Women in Real Estate.
Yeah.
Kehlani and Brittany, they put together an amazing golf fundraiser where I got to meet a ton of investors, and not just like real estate people in the real estate industry, but people in like lending, funding, construction, development. And so me and this guest, we really hit it off. We sat in the same table. And the rest is history. I told him, you got to get on the podcast because you have so much knowledge. And today's guest, he comes from humble beginnings from Jackson, Mississippi. He has a 15-year career in HR and business operations, working with specialty retail, big box brands, online brands. He learned how to support online businesses quite quickly. And anything in 2020, he kind of immersed himself in financial service industry and kind of left his job to pursue that. And to ensure his company Kairos suite of financial products and marketing services equips his clients to accomplish their goals and access to funding, which is always has been an issue in the past for many. But as CEO and creative director at Kairos, he's passionate about diversity, equity, and inclusion in marketing for the communities of entrepreneurs and the underrepresented, which is, again, I'm super excited. Let's welcome Xavier Norton to the Get the Bag podcast. What's going on, Xavier, or X, I like to call him?
Yeah.
What's up?
I am so excited to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, we were just talking about earlier how hot it is in Texas.
Right.
You got ponies outside. Like it's...
Yeah, so earlier this week at 6:30 a.m., I took my son to the park. 82 degrees. And then we hit 108 was the peak that day. I think today it's supposed to be 113, but it is hot. It is hot.
Wow. Yeah, we've been wanting that heat out here in LA. It's been just cloudy and overcast for the last several months, it feels like. So
I do not recommend this heat for LA.
Nah. Well, but then again, you guys aren't that far from the beach, but we do have the beach too if we need to. But what can we say? But thank you so much for joining and taking some time out of your day to chat with us.
For sure.
A lot of the people in the community, in our communities, are mostly into wholesaling real estate. But tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, what's going on? I gave a little intro, but who is Xavier?
Yeah, so you did a really great job as an intro, but I kind of go in a little bit further. Is we support business professionals, entrepreneurs, real estate investors, and content creators, because those specific areas of people are most likely in business of some sort and could access money to scale whatever they're doing, whether that's marketing, whether that's building out a build to rent portfolio, wholesaling. There's a lot of different areas that we can help provide access to capital. And then as far as what you had mentioned about the diversity, equity, inclusion, my background is something completely different than what you would call traditional education. I've taken a lot of alternative education and learning through a hands-on approach to be able to really guide folks specifically in those four areas that I've mentioned, in how they can scale themselves, scale their businesses. And what I've found over the years is that there's a lack of education specifically in underrepresented communities, right? Like, talk about your African-American communities, your Latino, your Asian Americans. Like, there's a lot of miseducation or undereducation, specifically where it comes to finance and or business operations. And so in my career, I've been able to, have the ears of some really large brands and really large companies to make an impact and just transferring that skill into this space is something that I really enjoy doing. It's literally just taking my background and my career and things I've done to support specific people in a niche, not only just supporting them, but educating as well.
Yeah. I think that's super important just because I know we're in a group and, I've started business before. Gladia's, started her real estate business. So I think when people, uh, realize that they're actually in a business, how to set that up, properly, get the right funding for that, because each industry is different, right? On what you need and what processes you need to set up, and they treat it more like a side hustle than a real business. And I think what you've so your services provide are a valuable asset for these businesses for sure.
100%. You actually talked about something that we help educate folks, right? Where you said like having a business or having a side hustle. And, it's great to have a side hustle. It's great to, make some extra money. However, when it comes to education, it's really helping you establish your footprint and establish yourself as a business owner.
Mm-hmm.
In having that mindset versus like, oh yeah, I'm just making a little bit of money on the side. I'm just got some stuff coming in.
Right.
Like, you are an established business owner. You have, financial responsibilities in order to drive revenue and give a service or product to whatever your consumer or business is. So
Yeah, I think that's such a great point because I don't think people realize, like, when you look at it from a side hustle, you're looking at it, I feel like, at the wrong looking at it from a wrong angle, because there's so many
Mm-hmm.
benefits and things you can take advantage of if you really there's so many programs for businesses, especially starting out, that you can take advantage of. And a lot of times, what are the issues when you start a business? It's funding, right? It's like money. Like, a lot of times we're using especially if we come from a 9 to 5, we're using our 9 to 5 to fund our business.
Mm-hmm.
But there's definitely programs you can take advantage of. And I think this is where Xavier comes in, where he can have a chat with you and be like, okay, based off of either you're getting started, this is what you can offer, or, hey, you're established, or you're kind of starting to make more money every month. Here are some programs, or, whatever the case may be. So you have to look at it from that perspective. Is, as a business owner, it's your responsibility to grow your business. And if you're looking at it as a side hustle, you're kind of really not taking advantage of the programs and opportunities that are out there, because people want to fund businesses. Like, people want you to start businesses.
100%. The government actually is incentivizing businesses because it's the backbone of America, the United States of America,
right?
Small businesses. And so if you're not getting yourself set up for success to be in business, you're completely missing out. And I think you alluded to something too, is like, even if you are established as a business, when you want to get some money from like a bank or anything like that, they have heavy stringent requirements. Like, you have to be in business for 3 years, have all your tax returns, and have a minimum threshold of your annual revenue, where you might be pre-revenue, or you might be a startup and you don't necessarily have 3 years worth, but you have your projections, where you're going to be going. There's programs that are available for you just on that business side, right? And that's what we get excited to help educate and bring people along the way.
I love that.
That's awesome. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I could tell he was passionate when I met him on the table, and like how passionate he was about this, but just wanted to add that in. If you can't tell, Xavier loves what he does.
Yes. Well, I'm passionate about it because I love education. So I love learning things that you don't know. And so when I find out something, I'm like, oh, I didn't know this. And then specifically when it involves finance, there's a lot of people who are, learning from different areas, are like, well, I heard somebody say they did it this way. And it's like, okay, well, that doesn't necessarily apply to you specifically with what you're presenting with, but here's what programs are available for you with your scenarios, and educating them along the way. So that way they learn and come back again over and over, because we're able to support in that capacity. So
yeah, I think that's important too, because I think people jump around, like, and within their business, and like the shiny object syndrome, where like they jump from one idea to another, and they really need to focus on their core, brand, or their core identity of their business and focus on that. And that's when I think when you narrow that down, you have a better idea how you're going to get funding for your business or what options you really have for your business.
100%. 100%. And I was going to plug this really quick, Claudio. When we were at that conference in Vegas, I was sitting down and I was like getting my breakfast, and I was like, "Oh, I don't know." And that's
it's like that. Like where do I sit?
Yeah,
like,
and I
who
was
at the lunch
like,
table?
"You look really dope. Come sit over here."
Hey. Right. Hey, it was the braids. It was the braids. Don't play. I had my braids in. You're like, all right, she's someone I can ride with.
It was because you had hair and I didn't have any hair. I was like, you know what? You come spray.
I love it.
So
So
positive vibes. So
absolutely. I think there was a lot of people there. It was just good people, good vibes all the way around. Like everyone who we met just was like amazing. And I will add, I learned what a ranch water was, a ranch water drink from you.
yes.
I was not aware, and I'd been drinking this, and I was like, oh, I didn't know this was such a term. So thank you, Texas.
You're
One
welcome.
thing I do appreciate about Texas. But I did want to kind of talk about like your transition. So in 2020, you're working in HR, and I remember we talked about this a little bit. Like you're working, I think, for Facebook or one of these bigger companies, and that's hard to like. You saw the vision, and I think there's a lot of viewers who are in this position that are like, geez, like I have this job, it's stable, but like, what made you kind of like starting in 2020 to be like, this is my vision, this is what I believe in, and I want to focus more on the financing side. Like what kind of gave you I guess the vision to kind of pursue that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I'll give a little backstory. Previous to being at Facebook or Meta Platforms, I worked for another big box retail store. And in that transition, I did not even want to go back into corporate America because I was like burnt out from being in corporate America.
Yeah.
Right.
And I ended up getting recruited, and I was like, okay, well, I can do this for a while. Like, I can, get in here, do my work. And while I'm doing this, what else can I do? Because I do not want to be here for that long. Like, I know that this is a W-2 income that's going to help provide an access way for me to not necessarily be in corporate America. So I already knew what my intentions were, and being very, very clear of like, yes, I'm here. I'm going to perform my duties. I'm going to make sure I'm on time and doing, my scope of work, go above and beyond, here and there. But I know what my core responsibilities are. But outside of that, here's what I'm actually doing. And so because my background is in HR and operations, I've worked for large retail brands, especially retail brands. I understand just the entire business structure and how you need to have stuff on hand for inventory or just the seasons, quarterly, yearly, and shopping trends for people. Understanding how consumers shop, their thought process, if they're in brick and mortar settings versus being in digital settings. All of that is a customer experience, right? And so if you're able to navigate customer experience, you're able to fund these different businesses that provide an experience. Businesses are relative to an industry. So if you are in tech, if you're in a medical, if you're in office, like there's all different verticals that still provide a provide an experience for their customers in order to exchange dollars. And that's just the base of how businesses ran, right? That you are providing a service for someone to exchange their dollars. So if you can get to that core piece and element, how can I add value into what everybody's already doing? Oh, I can get into this specific niche where you're giving people money, or not even people, just businesses money to allow them to scale, whether that's in any vehicle that they're in or any vertical, right? Like I said, whether that's real estate, whether that's in tech, whether that's in medical, like all of it is transferable because it's the base of being in business and offering a service or product. So I hope that gave you the context of how that kind of triggered for me.
No, absolutely. I think you saw a gap or maybe an area that you can take advantage of that people lack, and I'm sure through conversations too. And I think that's the biggest thing, right? When we jump to become business owners is like we see an area, we see an opportunity where it's like, oh, there's really a need there. And there's not really people like me kind of doing this. And it's something I can take advantage of. And that I mean, what controls everything? Money controls everything, right? And you're like, if I can help people like me and other underrepresented communities, like I'm game. So I that's what I really love about like what you do too is there's not many people out in the space, and I'm sure you know this more than we do that do what you do,
Yeah.
and I think that's important.
And I absolutely recognize that there's not a lot of people in this space. And I was telling some of my team about this last night. It's like no matter what room you go into, you're going to be the odd one because you go into any networking event, you're going to find wholesalers, you're going to find realtors, you're going to find developers, you're going to find insert that niche. You're going to copy and paste a few different people in the same career or same avatar, but you won't find anyone that does business finance. Like,
right.
oh, you won't. You'll find lenders, you'll find mortgage loan originators, you'll find those, but you won't find anyone that can guide you in this specific area of business. We can still do real estate transaction. We can still all do all those products that people know, but the business side is where people are uneducated, and that's where we really niche down and support.
Yeah, that's a big thing. Just because, like you said, different industries have different ways of finance and stuff, and I had started a consumer products company as well too, and just to cover inventory and stuff like that, there was like PO financing, so we could finance the order, and that would be our collateral for that. So we could actually put in the order to make the product to get it here to sell it, right? So, and then with real estate, there's all kinds of stuff like transactional funding. There's hard money lending. There's so many other avenues just from aside from like if you're just wholesaling, you're getting into other avenues like private lending or something like that. So it just that's why I was kind of excited to, talk to you and, hear your experience and educate people or, the viewers, just because each industry has a different way of, funding different businesses as well, too. So
100%. I think what I'll share, that's consistent across the board when it comes into lending, whether you're in business or real estate, is the intention at the time of, we call it your purchase or your transaction or anything of that nature. What we found is when we're talking to business owners, they might have an idea, or a real estate investor or anyone, they're like, I want to do this. It's like, okay, well, yes, you can do this, but here's what you're actually asking to do. So logistically, this is what we are doing, right? I want to buy this property. I want to make it look nice. Okay. Are you going to be, are you just buying it and hold it for a little bit? Do you already have a construction laid out plan? Like, what are you actually doing? Are you going to a duplex? Are you going to triplex? Like, do you have all the documents? Like, walking them through what actually needs to happen,
right?
Versus just like, oh, I want to do this, or like, I want to start a business. I want to, like you just said, I wanted to get into tech. Say, if I want to do that, okay, what is the actual cost for the products in order to build this? Are you going to need staff? Is this a 3 months, 6 months? What are your projections? So that way we can actually give you a full picture of what you're looking to do versus like, I have an idea and I want to do it.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So question for you, like, what strategies or approaches do you kind of employ to ensure like underrepresented, entrepreneurs or business have the equal access to like, these funding opportunities? I know that you need to know like, what the fundamental side of their business is, like you just described. So can you walk us through that a little bit?
Yeah. So a little bit of context. Previously in my career, I've also been a DEI champion, right? So being specifically in different areas of different resource groups to support different underrepresented groups, right? And so I already have an affinity and like a draw to these folks. And so I find them all the time. I find them at networking events. I find them at industry conferences. I find them in different groups, different platforms, right? You have your social media platforms for professionals, LinkedIn. One of my favorites, Alignable. It's kind of like LinkedIn's cousin, if you want to say. But just starting conversation, right? Because anytime you start a conversation with someone, I'm always interested in the business and what they're doing, just because I'm fascinated in learning about what they're doing in their business. And from there, I kind of hear buzzwords or things that they're talking about. It's like, that might be interesting to discover more. And so just start from that initial conversation, we'll go into what's called a discovery call. Because when you're around a lot of folks, you give a little high level information, but we won't necessarily get in depth into your business. And so within 30 minutes, we're able to ask a few questions, facilitate just like, what are you doing currently? What's your historical trends? What are you looking to do? And then quantify it so we can give them, hey, here's the things we're going to need. Here's the things, some action items for you if you're looking to do this, right? So for example, last week I met with a business owner who needed $1.3 million for equipment. It's like, okay, do you have the invoices for how much the equipment's going to cost? Like, I need all these statements. Do you have your bank statements? All these great things. Cool. Well, then we get into the part where we looked at the credit, and the credit wasn't as good. So 1.3 million may not be as tangible. However, a smaller amount might be. And here's how you can do it. Here's how I can get you a game plan over the next 3, 6, 9 months to not only get your credit repaired, but also scale your business at the same time as well.
Mm-hmm.
So distilling what the business owner is trying to do into what actually can happen from the bank's perspective.
Yeah. And as a business owner, you're like, I need money now. Like,
Right.
the whole thing is like, I need money now, but sometimes it's not the vision of what you need isn't the vision what you can do at that moment. So,
Realistic.
Yeah.
Because I feel like people just, I'm sure for people starting out too, they're just like, I just need money.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, there's so many little things you need, like tax returns, or it's like, oh, I haven't done my taxes, or or this and that. I'm sure you have plenty of stories where people like are, and I think this is where the knowledge and education comes into play, because you really, if you know what you don't know, and so it's
Mm-hmm.
like, I think what the services that you offer, Xavier, are so key because you're bringing value right off the bat by, I'm sure in this discovery call, by kind of figuring out what they do and like kind of showing them in the right direction of like, well, actually, why don't you work on your credit first, or these are some things you can do, and then come back, or whatever, because just people just don't know really what they're doing. Who knows, right? As a business owner, nobody knows what they're doing anyways. But I think it's really important for people to know is like, you can't just ask for money, and it doesn't work out that way anyways. If you want to ask a bank anyways, like there's things that you need, there's paperwork, so it also gives you that kind of motivation to be like, oh, I need to get my shit in order, or this is where like the side hustle and actual business, like the two differences come into play.
You're right on par with what I was just going to say. Is I was going to give a real life example that goes to what you're talking about, that side hustle in business. I had another client most recently that, more than happy to help. And so once we had our discovery call, I uncovered what their annual revenue is, which, it's great to have annual revenue. However, from a banking perspective, it's not considered substantial enough to even qualify for anything. And so he was getting frustrated with me, and I was like, hey, I'm not,
I'm just a messenger.
Yeah.
Just letting you know that you have to increase your revenue to even qualify. So instead of trying to find money, let's drive your revenue. That's your action step. It's like, you're not going to get any money until you're actually able to have a sustainable business on paper versus what is being presented now. And it's not trying to frustrate people. I'm just trying to help you understand how to get positioned for what you're looking for.
Right. And so for people starting out, like many people who are in the wholesaling group we're in, they really have limited funds, or like what do you recommend? Is it just kind of like, hey, close some deals and then come talk to me, or what are some advice for people starting out? Because there's various levels, right? There's people who have a 9 to 5 who can leverage that as well to get a loan or whatever or whatnot. But like, what do you kind of recommend?
I'm going to give you my HR answer.
Love it. Yes.
It depends. Right? So it depends on the scenario. So specifically for like wholesalers, you may have a wholesaler that might have a good credit score, right? So maybe that wholesaler has a good credit score and they have an LLC because they have themselves set up as a business. They're able to qualify for up to $125,000 of unsecured lines of credit. That's one vehicle. That's just in that scenario. Secondarily, say you might have a wholesaler that needs a quick close. we're able to go through and do those as well. So they get their pay. And I always recommend having it going to a business account, because that now is deposit for your business.
Right.
That's the separation between having a side hustle and having a business. This money that is being acquired is going into my business account, and now I have that document for my business account saying, here's the revenue that was generated from this transaction, right? Same thing for someone that may not have the best credit. You may be able to qualify for like a hard money loan. It's probably going to have a higher interest rate, but that's just the name of the game, right? If you have a lower credit score, your interest is going to be higher. How much money do you have to bring to the deal? Like, there's a lot of factors that can that we can use to interpret to the bank for whatever you're looking to accomplish.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. And I think a part of it is, people that are starting wholesaling that don't have money, they look at other opportunities, whether it's on YouTube or whatever, to like business financing, or, and they don't even have an LLC yet. And, so they're going down a rabbit hole that they're not really ready for yet. So I think, your service is an amazing service to where you can provide, like, these are the steps that you need to take to get to the point where you want to get to. And, you don't have to have a lot of money to get to those points, whether you do a deal, or we can help you close a deal through like hard money or whatever transitional funding or whatever options that you have, but you can guide them through that.
100%, 100%. And you are absolutely spot on. A lot of times when people come to me, I don't say it a lot of times, I've seen where folks will come to me and they're not necessarily ready. Or they come to me and it's like, okay, here's your options. Like, ooh, that's really my options. I didn't realize that I can really get it. Like, yeah, you can. Here's what you want. Or select which one you want. And it's eye-opening to see, like, wow, I can access this capital today. Like, I can right now.
And that's what I'm saying. I think people, kind of the differences between side hustle and an actual business is there's this money in programs, and it's like we're all investing in ourselves, right? So it's like, hey, there's this, I'm qualified for a line of credit of 125,000. Like, imagine what you can do with that money and the ROI you can do. So it's like, if me and Tim want to hire some people, like, imagine what we can do with 125K, and we're able to close 300K worth of deals. That's already like something we can just like pay off or whatnot. So I think looking at it from that perspective, not just like, ooh, I don't know about that, or like, I think there's also that imposter syndrome as well of like, oh, I'm not even gonna bother checking that out. Like, I don't qualify, or I don't make enough money, or my credit is this or that. Like, it doesn't hurt to try. So I think just changing your mindset in that perspective. But I did want to ask you, like, what are your thoughts on like business credit? Because that's such a like flashy thing on IG right now, on like, hey, you can get this amount, you can get all these credit cards and this and that to fund. Like, do you kind of also educate people a little bit on business credit as well?
Yeah, so there's a lot of, like you said, business credit, that's a hot term, right? Ooh, I want business credit. I want business credit. I'm going to get my business credit. Like, everyone wants to have business credit. Now there's I would say there's a short game with business credit, and then there's a long-term game with business credit, right? And so helping people understand that you can't just jump in and get $125,000 off the bat always. You might be able to qualify, but once again, it depends on what the factors are in the application, who are all being involved. Business credit, there's a lot of different ways you can do it, right? You can stack with some of the personal, some of the business side, get a payment history on the business side and start getting larger amounts. If you have a lower credit score, you might not qualify for a business line of credit, so they'll give you what's called a merchant cash advance, which is pretty much like a starter product to see if you can actually get into a business line of credit. Because, and I mean this in the most respectful way, if you already have a lower credit score, it's a more of a risk for the lender. So then your merchant cash advance is going to be on a shorter payment schedule, right? It might be daily, might be weekly, just to make sure that we're able to recoup the funds that we're giving. And then once you have like maybe one or two of those, that opens up the opportunity for you to get a business line of credit because you have a payment history consistently, right? But you do see a lot of stuff on social media, like, yeah, you go here and spin around 3 times and clap, and now you got a business line of credit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you want to.
Yeah.
But TikTok told me that, I
I
can
can
get
get
it
this
tomorrow.
card. I can get a black card and, lie and say I make this much. And I mean, there's been a few people who've been caught for fraud and stuff like that.
Do not want to go to jail. Do not want to go directly to jail. I do not want to do any of that.
Yeah, exactly. That's just your slogan. Don't go to jail.
Exactly. But yeah,
Um,
it's a buzzword that people are like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do that. It's like another trend that people are getting for, and this is where it comes onto the social media side. It's like people go through and create the content because they know people engage with it. And so it's not necessarily educational content, it's just content that's going to draw users to engage with it versus the actual education and the actual steps that really need to take place. So you have to be very cognizant of careful of what you're watching on social media platforms, because it can take you in a completely wrong direction. And you'll start like, oh, I want to get business credit and I'm going down this pathway, and you haven't even set up the LLC yet to have a business line of credit.
Yeah.
Right. Baby steps.
Right.
I was gonna say, like, so I know you talked about like you investing, like how do you collaborate? Because I'm sure like through networking, like I see you at events, and we'll talk about kind of the event you have coming up in the next couple of months. But how do you use that for yourself, like for you to get funding? Because I know you have other business ventures, and we've talked about real estate as well. So how do you collaborate with like maybe the clients you work with, like investors, like lender? Who knows? I'm kind of curious about that as well.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So how do I want to answer this? I'd say, as far from an investment perspective, on the lending side, most times when you're going through and doing like a deal, there might be an opportunity for you to not only do the loan, but also invest on the other side as well. So you're able to get some of the equity piece, but also collect on the actual transaction as well. So that's one play that we do in our space. And then you're always working with different real estate investors. You're always working with, depending on the scale, right? You might have people who are accredited, people that are not accredited, some people that have a higher risk tolerance, that people who have a lower risk tolerance. And so one of the vehicles that we work in is in the short-term rental space, because we part of our team does own like turnkey management, owning and operating short-term rentals for investors that don't really want to, get their hands into it. They just want to get cash flow. And so we have here some properties that we're getting on the single family side to turn into short-term rentals, but then that's also transferable on the commercial side as well. And we have this 16-unit deal. It's going to be 1.2 million. We're able to fund it. We just need to bring some equity players to the table. You already, and I mean this in the nicest way, it's all about people will invest with those that they know, like, and trust. So you build that rapport. And so when you bring these opportunities, it's already a cognitive recognition of like, oh yeah, that's Xavier. He does this stuff. He was awesome, and I like this. That's where that starts. For months later, where we come to like, hey, we have a $1.7 million deal. Do you want to invest in it? There's that recognition to bring along the way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. I mean, I work with a family office too, so they what I've learned from them is that there's a few ways that you can actually benefit from the deal. Like, if you come in early on the ground floor where you're a GP on the deal, this might be a little bit high level, but if you come in a GP on the deal and tell the other co-GP that, hey, you're going to bring the debt side, and then you have the relationship for that debt, you still get a point or two from that debt service. And then also you get the percentage of the actual GP percentage for bringing in extra capital for that, but also you bring in the buyer too for it. So it's definitely a situation where you as the investor can come in different and make money different ways, long-term and short-term, like when you close and then when you exit the property as well.
Exactly. Or even with like a refinance, right?
Yep.
Might be going through and doing a refinance to get equity to go and do this next play. We're going to make money there's a lot of different vehicles to be able to make money throughout that entire process. One client we're working on right now owns a retail spot in Texas, and we're helping him refinance that so he can get some equity to start doing some beautification for the property, but also so he can have some equity go through and start developing some of the land that he has, which then is going to open up other things. So it's like a trickle effect. Like, okay, we'll start with this one, and then it goes that one.
Love it.
I love that. I'm kind of curious because you talk to so many people, I'm sure, what are like common challenges that come up, especially maybe for underrepresented like minority entrepreneurs, perhaps? I'm sure that you like maybe it becomes a vent thing, like, oh, I tried funding here and like just show out of luck. Like tell us about like what kind of challenges like those business owners kind of go to, and how you kind of like help and support them in through that process.
I would say the number one thing that I've seen consistently across is documentation, for sure. So the first documents that are like critical and necessary are your articles of incorporation, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you have an LLC, who's all on the LLC? What percentage ownership do they have? And a lot of times, either they might be a DBA, doing business as,
Mm-hmm.
doing business, right? They have some really good revenue. They just aren't officially established in the bank's eyes as a business. So walking them through like what that means, because they're like, well, I'm already at the bank. How come I can't? Well, that's because you're at the bank, but you're not a business at the bank. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Helping them walking through those documents, and then getting into the bank statement pieces, right? Helping them understand what the average daily balance is. So say if you have your deposits coming into your bank account and you start going through and covering payroll, covering all the different expenses that you have, how much money is left in that account after you as a business owner have done business? Is it 5,000? Is it 10,000? 20? What is that average daily balance? Because that's the true map of what your business is doing, whether you're in real estate or in business. That's what the bank is going to look at. Is like on any given day, how much money is in your account, right? So helping them identify what really needs to be an expense, so they're not using it as a hobby account, but this is a business account. This is what we're doing on this account, so that way it's reflected on your statements as well.
Mm-hmm.
So those are, I would say, the two biggest things when I'm working with underrepresented folks, is because, and I mean in the the nicest way, we're taught how to hustle. And so the money gets into the account. It's like, oh, I'm about to go do this, and this, and this. Okay.
That's about to go to Vegas.
So, okay, cool. Now let's still do that, but how can we make it a business transaction? How can we give it a business purpose to identify that on your statements as well?
Yeah. And
that's huge.
That's important, just because it just shows you that, you're treating your business as a business, not as a personal, bank, basically, that you're drawing money from all the time. And now it's at zero because you're not putting back anything into the business. And, and that's important because the bank sees that as like, that is your current cash flow that you have, that's sustaining your business. And this is what actual net revenue that you're making for your business too.
Yeah, and I've learned that from like also the profit first too. There's the profit for, and I think there's a newer version where it's like for real estate investors, where it talks about, hey, when you get income, like there should be these different accounts, and that's just a healthy way to distribute the and allowing yourself for profit. Because a lot of times too, there's the other flip of the coin where it's like I don't invest, or I don't give myself profit, I just put it back in the business. But you work so hard, like you have to kind of get some of that profit. So that's also kind of helped, especially for people starting out on like because how many times I've heard of people were like, oh, I just closed a $20,000 deal, like next week, oh, it's gone, and it's just like because they don't know like the actual process in the foundation to get you going. So I think it's great that they have someone like you to kind of like walk them through, at least on like what they need to go through that.
100%.
I did want to kind of talk about like your upcoming conference. I think you're calling it the Short-Term Rental Growth Conference in September.
Yes.
So talk to us about that.
I got you. So I'll backtrack this a little bit. When we went to Vegas, I got to meet in person Brittany and Kaylani with the Women in Real Estate group. And so these are two individuals that I've just admired for so long, just because of the space that they've created for women in real estate, and not only just for women, but just inside of the real estate space. And so I wanted to go and just like connect and get the vibe. And then while I was there, right before I went there, a part of my team, they were like, we want to do a short-term rental conference. You're going to be there. You're going to see some of these people that we know. You should like see if we can collaborate. And I was like, okay. So I got like hella nervous to even ask, because I'm like at your event to ask you about if you want to partner on another event. And they were so gracious. They were like, heck yeah, we want to jump in on that. And so fast forward, we've been able to bring industry professionals like across the globe to Austin, Texas, highlighting the hospitality industry in short-term rentals.
Right.
And so what a lot of people don't understand about short-term rentals is like, you can just have a house that, you know, people go through and live in, or, you know, that could be a long-term rental, but in the short-term rental space, you might have like a nice house that's pretty, but then when you're giving an experience for your guests, that's where you get to really increase your cash flow in that hospitality business, not just the real estate side. The real estate side is already covered, but how do you get your cash flow up? Getting $537 a night or $2,000 a night, or, you know, how do you that demand is by what we're going to be covering at this conference, right? Structure and logistics, like pest control and hot tub maintenance and all these minute things that people who are, you know, owner and operators or short-term rental, they might be curious about getting a short-term rental. These are things you need to know if you want to increase your cash flow. Same thing like marketing and branding, right? Like, how do you get your listing to the top? Think about your consumer experience. I'm going online to Airbnb for this area. You're gonna see the first 3 ones, and those are the ones you're going to click for sure. It's the top of the listing. How do you get listed up there? How do you get your reviews? How do you get more people engaged with the product you're offering on platforms, whether that's Airbnb, whether that's VRBO or direct listings, right? And so we're bringing together industry professionals to educate folks and give some more insight into like how you can go from zero to where they are, and giving actual tangible action steps. We have like one of the speakers is putting together a workbook to so people can capture all the information. It's just going to be a really, really great educational resource for investors, real estate professionals, hospitality professionals, whether you're, you know, in a smaller scale, or if you want to go bigger scale in conversions for short-term rentals. We have Dia Liu, who does hotel conversions for short-term rentals, right? Single family, but then you get into hotel conversions and have crazy cash flow in that capacity for like boutique hotels too. So that's going to be September 10th through the 12th in Austin, Texas. You can get tickets at www.strgrowthsummit.com. There's 3 different packages. We have general, VIP, and then the VIP premium, where you get to tour the market of Austin and see that area, because, you know, everyone's been talking about Texas, right? Oh my gosh, Austin. Oh my gosh, Dallas. Oh my gosh, San Antonio. And being here, boots on the ground, I've seen the growth in the Texas market. And we know that there's a lot that can happen and is happening currently. So for our VIP premiums, we're going to take you on a tour of Austin, show you some properties that are available to be invested in currently right then, and just really have what I call a really good positive vibe. So that's the conference that's coming up in September. I hope that's dope. Too long.
No, that's great. I think what's really cool is you know, there's these misconceptions too on like, I think there's a strategic way to go about short-term rentals because there's more and more regulations coming down on Airbnbs. So I think it's important to continue to increase your knowledge on like what things that you can do, how can you adjust, or it's like, okay, maybe this market isn't it. What strategies can I implement, you know, with the properties I do have. So I think that's really great. Just because it's just something that you know, I think it was such a hot, trendy topic over the past year on like, you can Airbnb everything. And then it's like, oh, I can't.
Right.
So I love that you have that. And was that something that you kind of was inspired by you and you kind of created, or how'd that event come together?
That was a very good question. So as part of what we do at Kairos, we have a program called a Business Accelerator, where we'll go through, like we talked about doing this discovery call, and then we have an accelerator program where we walk our clients through like a 30, 60, 90-day action plan in order to achieve the result. And so part of my team, they were like, you know, we want to go through and do a conference. We've met some really great people at these conferences in like Nashville and different areas across the country. How could we put together a conference to do something different that's not being done in the industry? And so I lend on short-term rentals, but I'm not ingrained in the industry. So for me, it's just like, okay, Business Accelerator. If you want to go from here to here, here's what you need to do. Boop, 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 boop. Insert these people, insert these faces. you guys have more context of who these people are, but from the operations perspective, here's what needs to happen. And then went through, gave a game plan, and then they just blew up. It feels like we have Julie George, who is globally known in the short-term rental space compared to the US. She's coming in from Australia to be our headliner for this conference. So that's super huge right there. We have Brittany and Kaylani from Wire. They're huge in this in real estate in general, and just supporting entrepreneurs, supporting real estate professionals. We have Dr. Rachel Gainsborough, who sat with us at breakfast when we were in Vegas.
Yeah, I remember.
Mm-hmm. Yep, she's been seen on Netflix. She does midterm rentals, which is a different approach, but it's a little bit more consistent cash flow versus short-term rentals. But there's a lot of industry professionals coming in to help educate and guide folks that are maybe interested, might already be doing something, but short-term rentals is so competitive now. Like, just have Jenny Yee, she said, just having a pretty house is the bare minimum now. You have to set your property apart and create an experience for guests that they will want to pay for that, especially in this remote work environment.
Right.
You want to go and have an experience. I can pop up my laptop, close it, and then here's where I am for the day.
Right.
That's dope.
I love that. I like how you're looking at it from like even a product perspective too, like because me being in like the tech space in product, the customer experience is everything, is like identifying like your customer journey, right? That's usually a common term on like, okay, when they land on this page or on this app, like what are the steps, and like what's the customer journey? Are they getting frustrated? And so I think when you look at it, you can apply that to everything. You can apply that in your business. You can apply that in wholesaling, how we talk to sellers is like, okay, like what's that experience looking like? But I think in short-term rentals with Airbnb, it's even more because they're actually there, right? So it's like, what experience do we want to create? When they come in this home or property, whatever the case may be. So I love that.
Exactly that. So that's the conference that's coming up. We have some really, really awesome jam-packed sessions for day 2 and day 3. Day 1, I'm gonna plug it for y'all, is Latin themed. We're actually
Hey, what's going on?
With some really great people within Austin, because the venue that we're having it is a historically Latin area. So like we're really, like I said, we're all about the diversity, equity, inclusion, like to the bone. So we're having it this area, this pocket of Austin that is historically Latino. We're bringing in some really great vibes on that day and having the DJ come in.
A bunch of ranch waters.
A bunch of ranch waters and tequila.
For those who don't know what ranch water is, technically it's Topo Chico, right? Lime juice and tequila.
100%. That way you stay hydrated and lit.
Exactly. We were maybe a little too lit in Vegas with
just
the amount of ranch waters. Too many tokens, free drink tokens.
Yes.
So I know we're approaching the end of the show, and again, I appreciate. There's just so much knowledge, and I hope all you guys watching are taking your notes. I think we'll obviously link how to get in touch with Xavier. But what's kind of next for you? What's next for Xavier and your in Kairos and like your company? What's sort of like your vision, kind of like aspirations? I know you've accomplished so much, or like maybe initiatives or projects that you have in coming up in the next year.
Yeah. So in the next year, scaling, right? So right now we're very, very lean. But we want to scale. So we have like 2 offices, one in Central Texas and then one in like the Dallas area. We want to start scaling and onboarding more folks and training and educating on the back end so we can quickly service folks. And then I would see probably the next 2 years an actual app where you can go through and like do all that stuff. So it's a little bit more automated, not as manual and strenuous, which is, it's not really strenuous. We just want to be scalable. So
yeah. That's dope. That's dope.
Excited about it. I tell people I'm a nerd, so having that background in tech stuff is just like,
hey, being a nerd helps.
Yes,
it does. 100%.
That's what we see for the foreseeable future.
That's awesome.
Just be a nerd, guys.
Yep, exactly.
Period.
So I guess lastly, what would you like to leave the viewers? Any comments or anything, and then also how to get a hold of you. I'm sure we'll put that at the bottom here. But yeah, just some final thoughts from you and how they can get a hold of you too.
Yeah, so I would definitely say money is highly accessible if you know, if you have someone guide you through. So yes, I highly recommend our team, right? But please make sure you go to the correct sources so you're able to access money, because it's highly available right now. I wouldn't necessarily pay attention to the headlines, because a lot of that stuff is to scare people from making educated decisions. And quick plug on Patty got good speech. She has a whole thing with Kehlani where they do truth behind the headlines. Tap into that information so you actually have quantifiable data in making decisions in this market that we're in right now. And then when you're ready to get some money, let's go. Like, we are ready to deploy capital. We're ready to help you at any point in time. You can go to our website, www.kairosmovements.com. I'll get you the link. You can follow me on Instagram, x.gets.funding. We love helping people. We love helping people. We're all about service. And it's great to make money, but what we really enjoy is helping people to go from A to their next step. That's what Kairos actually means, is opportune moment in time. And so every time we meet someone, we know that there's an opportunity for us to help them change the trajectory of their business or their life. So
I love that. Mic drop.
I know, right?
Well, I do also want to add to that is, like, for people either starting out or maybe they've closed a few deals, don't be scared to, like, at least kind of find out what you need to know. So whether you want to schedule a discovery call, I'm sure, Xavier's team will point you in the right direction, because there's nothing more satisfying than to have a meeting and be like, okay, you need to do X, Y, and Z. And then you take that and figure it out and then come back. So don't be scared to ask for help first off, and then figure out what it is that you need to do. Because like you said, there's funding available right now. Like, regardless of where the market is at, the government, whatever, wants to create business owners. So there's funding for people like us. And that's even wholesalers just getting started, or, people that, are maybe somewhere in between their businesses, or, have kind of established business. So don't be scared. Just just reach out to Xavier and make that happen.
We'll be more than happy to help.
Love it. Well, thanks so much, Xavier. Like, dude, this was awesome. And I hope people watching, you guys got a lot out of it. I believe I have your link. I'll add the conference link to the show notes as well. But make sure you get in touch with Xavier on IG or schedule a discovery call to get you set up. But X, I appreciate you again, taking some time out. Maybe we can try to see if we can come out to Austin. I've never been.
Come on down. It's going to be a great time. We actually, so I'll quick plug, one of the things that we're doing too for our VIP experiences, you get to actually stay at some of our preferred hosts in Austin. So Wire, they're staying at this super dope one that they're going to be filming content in that will be released after. But it's got emerald accent walls with really great accents in the rooms. It's super hella dope. So come on down.
Okay.
You're not going to regret the experience you have.
Love it.
I love it. Well, book your tickets to the STR Growth Summit. That VIP sound pretty nice. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, again, such a pleasure. We'll definitely have to keep in touch. And everyone else, again, appreciate you guys tuning in. Reach out to us if you have any questions. Reach out to Xavier if you have any questions to set up that discovery call. But I hope you guys have a great rest of the week, and we'll connect next week.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Peace.